The Pool Guy Podcast Show. The Pool Guy Podcast Show. The Pool Guy Podcast Show. Yeah!
Hi, and welcome to the Pool Guy Podcast Show. Today I'll be joined by Harold Evans of Orenda Technologies, and we're going to discuss the future of the industry, some ways to make your service the best it can be, and we'll touch on some ways that you can future-proof your service so that when you have road bumps like we had with the inflation, it's not going to derail your whole company. So Harold's going to take his vast knowledge of the industry, which if you don't know, Harold also has a thriving pool service that he's had for decades, since I think 1984. And he's also the CEO and founder of Orenda Technologies. So you're going to hear firsthand from Harold how your service company should be operating and the best practices of the industry. Pool Service Pro, open a Leslie's wholesale account today and receive wholesale pricing on products you use every day. Leslie's Pool Supply offers convenient locations that are open 7 days a week. Another great benefit of opening a Leslie's wholesale account is Leslie's referral program. Get referred to a customer looking for weekly pool service. Also receive priority service, enhanced rebate programs, a discount on your general liability insurance through SPA, a discount on your pool routing software through Skimmer, and an opportunity to co-brand with Leslie's on your social media, website, truck, and more. Save time and money and grow your pool service route and become a Leslie's Pro. So today I'm joined by Harold Evans of Orenda Technologies. How you doing today, Harold?
I am doing fine, David. It's good to be with you.
Yes, I'm glad to have you back. We should do this more often, but I know that you're a busy guy doing 10,000 things every week. So thanks for making time for this. Let's talk a little bit about the future of the industry. Pool building is in high demand here. The pool builder in my area is like 80 pools behind all the way till next year. If you get an estimate today for a pool build, you're lucky if they break ground next year in March or April. So the industry and that end, and besides the shortages are slowing them down too. What do you see 10 years from now in the pool industry, the way things are moving? I mean, we've had 2 years of record growth in the industry. The pool profession has never been better. The big mega companies are here because they have investment banks behind them. So they're investing in the pool industry. They're buying up routes. How do you see the future in 10 years?
Well, first of all pigs go to slaughter. If you're thinking today that you're the most important person in the whole world and that everybody wants you and you're an amazing rock star and you're the Bon Jovi of pool construction or pool service, you're in trouble. You know, you're cutting your own throat. I've heard this. This was stated by an executive in the pool business that I know very well. He said to me, I have 17 manufacturers right now that when this thing settles down, I am going to penalize big. The way they've behaved, the way they've communicated, the predatory behavior I see, they have a long-term future with me not. So I would say to all of us that are living in our prosperity, remember that there will be a time when it is not. Now, one of the faults that I personally believe in the pool construction business, and I don't mean to be disparaging about it, but the subs are building the pools, the builders aren't. That's a problem. I love my contractor to death, but I'm over there making sure the things that I want are executed. And I think that, as a pool builder, you should be a fiduciary for the consumer. Not a person that's a machine making a bunch of money because you know a bunch of people that build pools. And I think the problem is most subs build their pool the way they built the last pool. That may or may not be right. So who's the fiduciary here protecting the consumer and adding the value? Or are you just a machine because you have a bunch of names on a piece of paper that you can call and they come do the work and that's that? So I think a lot of that depends on how you view this. I personally think, no disrespect meant to the venture money in our industry, I have not seen a venture capital deal in our industry that was perfect, that made me think I wanted to be a part of that, because there's always something that seems to go wrong. And it depends on what your purpose is. Let's face it, venture capital's desire is to generate more capital. Small family business like mine, we're here to make our customers happy and to have a long future for our family. And we want to make money. I'm not Goldilocks, but I'm also not thinking about nothing but money. So I would say just keep your eyes on the days that you remember when there was no prosperity and be sure that you're behaving in that way and thinking that way and not thinking take a number and get over yourself. So calling people back, behaving in the way that you do, telling people that your current pace of business is unsustainable and that you can only take a certain number of people. And then the consumers need to get their heads in the game and recognize if they ask for supernatural things to happen, not so good things will happen to them as a result of that. So if the environment is a supply chain issue and it's going to postpone the construction process in whatever way or elevate the costs, then, listen, I'm 66 years old. You know what? I don't know if lumber's going down or up. I don't know if hardwood floors are going to get less or more expensive, but here's what I do know. I know I have less time coming than I had behind me. I know at 66 that if I live a good life, 10 years from now, I'm going to be spending more time in doctor's offices than looking out my back porch. So I'm remodeling my house today without regard for the inflation because of time and because I can. What I would say is, let's not take advantage of people. Let's do the right thing and act by the golden rule. Let's understand that people have wealth and that people have things they want. And in my case, 10 years from now, I'm not going to be remodeling my house. I'm going to be sitting in a doctor's office having a checkup of the last ache that I had. So I'm going to pay attention to things and what they cost. But ultimately, if I've lived my life right, which I think I have by not being wasteful and saving money and not spending all that I make, then I get to live a certain life as a result of it. So, you can't look at the prosperity numbers and not be mindful of the fact this changes. Those of us that have been doing this as long as you and I have, David, the bottom line is that we don't have as much time as we have the desire to have things a particular way, but let's not take advantage of people for that. Let's do the right thing. Let's build what we can build responsibly, communicate the shortcomings as often as possible. I get a call from my contractor in the morning that tells me what isn't going to happen that day. That's an amazing, That's the way to do things, folks. We hide from people when we have bad news. Huge mistake. Because vacuums are filled with information, not always accurately. So if you don't talk to your customer because you don't know, then tell them you don't know. Be mindful of that process and be golden rule driven by the way you communicate it, and your customers will love you. And they'll be patient with the amount of time it takes because there's nothing you can do about it. But there's something you can do about not telling them.
And I agree with you there. I had a customer that they just told me yesterday, hey, we got a bid for the pool replaster, and it came in at $16,000. I told her I would wait. That's the ridiculous price for your size pool. It's like double what it should be. I said, this is not the time to do it. Just wait it out a little bit, let things cool down. And the same thing in the real estate industry. I do a lot of investing. And right now in California, the real estate is booming. All the contractors are busy trying to get a tub reglazed. And I call somebody and I get no response back. I text him, no response. Then he says, text me. I text him and no response from that text. And so that guy's, booming right now. Obviously, he's doing a lot of work. But in the future, he's not going to do any work for me because he's not being responsive now. So I think what you're saying about the industry booming now, you have to be careful that you're not stepping on toes, because later on when things do slow down and turn around, you're going to burn a lot of bridges.
Well, arrogance serves no one. And honestly, it's an uncertainty when you act that way, generally, I've found at my age. And like I said earlier, a simple statement, all pigs go to slaughter. Don't forget that if you don't live by the golden rule and act as best you can closest to the golden rule, then there'll come a day of reckoning.
Yeah, I agree. And I think the industry needs to also understand that it ebbs and flows, and you just have to treat everyone the same way. I never understood that either. When I run my business, I don't treat one customer because of their zip code better than the customer with the worst zip code. Everyone's the same when I treat them.
Well, your level of service should not be a reflection of your rate. Your level of your services should be a reflection of your strategy and your philosophy. And it wouldn't matter what zip code it's in, or, certainly conditions matter. I mean, if you're a pool service person and you're putting up with a pool that they won't plaster and you can't maintain chemistry and refuse to get their filter fixed and won't do their filter clean, then you need to purge that customer, in my opinion, if they don't want to behave, and make way for good ones. Because what ends up happening is the attitude of the bad customer then affects the way we deliver a service to the good customer. No one is beyond the ability of being frustrated by, mistreatment or not listening to your advice, and the resulting extra effort that it creates for you that honestly, even charging more for it doesn't remedy because you're still frustrated. So, create a standard, a gold standard, make sure it's top industry standard, that you're the most informed person you can be. Go to the training shows. Be an arbiter of an experience. Like you said, David, be a fiduciary that controls the experience of your customers so they can trust you. I mean, our industry does not have enough trust. And part of it is because we haven't earned it. We treat things transactionally sometimes. And part of it is that when I look at the rates that I charged in 84 and today, they haven't changed a whole lot. Ours have, but a lot haven't. And all that this escalation and hyper escalation that's going on right now is focusing on is none of this thought about ordinary garden variety cost increases that we weren't accounting for. And now we have to make radical reactions. And that's what I hear people saying. You can't go up double a rate and not lose customers just on the perception alone. And the truth is, you should have been breaking it to them a little at a time each year, not being predatory, but being responsible and balanced about it.
I agree with you there because I think I myself am guilty of that, where we haven't had any inflation, prices were the same. And so I wasn't raising my rates probably according to when I should have every year or two. And then when this hits and you have to raise the rates by $30 or $40, that's like a 30% increase to a lot of customers, and that's a huge increase because a lot of us dropped the ball. We weren't really raising the rates when we should have been, anticipating something like this. And the same thing, I'll just throw this out there, in my real estate investing, there's properties where the rent's at $800 a month and the landlord never raised it. They're the old school guy. And they go to try to sell the property now, and the rent in that area is double, $1,600. But California in 2019 passed a rent control rule across the state. You can only raise the rent 8%. So think about how long it's going to take to get that $800 a month tenant up to $1,600 at 8% a year. And that's kind of like where the industry is here with the inflation. No one expected the state to put rent control in across every county. And the same thing with the industry. No one expected a 100% increase in tablets, 30% in chlorine. But in retrospect, we should have been raising the rates along the way to kind of keep up with at least the rate of inflation of 4%.
Well, the number one problem that you hear in the country by far and away is the labor problem. And quite frankly, our notion of compensation is not above par. And so the only way you can actually attract the right employees to have a satisfactory experience is to rate yourself to where you can pay people properly. And I think that, we don't, as an industry, do a very good job of paying well. And as a result, we don't get the top candidates. And I think that there's a need to recognize that that's when you go up 4%, when you maybe don't have a great increase that year because you're trying to raise the bar for your people. You want to pay them to train to take Academy and 4 Pillars and Startup. You don't expect them to do that on their own. I know a lot of companies and we've seen a big spike as a result of it. We have an enormous spike in signups of our training. But I think part of it is that, like my son, that if I don't have a new hire take those courses, I spend a lot more time getting them up to snuff. And I tell people that call us and ask for help, if you're going to ask for help, please do the work yourself to be better at what you're doing and then ask for help. Don't just call up every time you find yourself in a condition that you haven't thought through or read about and then expect us to help you on the help desk. I don't want to be, disingenuous about this, but most of the time I'm going to tell you, before you call and ask for help, get the information in your head so that when I speak to you, you can better comprehend some of the changes we're talking about. A lot of the thinking that Orenda promotes is not conventional. It's not out of the chute. It's becoming more. You be the best example you can be. The truth is that we as an industry, do we stop and think that our experience is certainly valuable? I mean, but that the more we understand, the more we can impart information to our customers and provide them the assurance where they leave us alone and let us do our job. I mean, that's the dream customer for the average full service person. Here's my credit card. Please take care of me. treat me by the golden rule, and if something comes up, take care of it for me. That's a dream customer. Now, what does that customer look like? That customer isn't going to tolerate the fact that you wanted to go play video games at night instead of do your homework, just like when you were a kid, except now it's your pool work. To all of you out there, recognize that we receive calls at Orenda every single solitary day. And I can tell you that the number one complaint that we hear about the trade is the unwillingness to change what they've done before and meet the need of the customer. We've informed customers about these conditions, and they now understand it. It's no longer, see, for many years, we controlled all the information as a trade, and that's no longer the case. Our customers can learn more about water chemistry than the average person that treats 100 pools. So you can't go on about the business of thinking you're in control of all the information, therefore you don't intend to impart any change or understanding, because they're going to leave you behind. I had a fellow I did a Facebook Live with down in College Station where Texas A&M is, and this guy, he's an investment banker. No telling what that guy makes. And he said, listen, I hate the fact I have to treat my own pool, but every time I ask somebody to follow the rules that you've helped me understand, they won't do it. So I'm forced to do it myself for no other reason than there's nobody willing to comply with the system. Why not just figure out the startup, where you don't get dust and don't push it around all day long and for weeks? There's all these things that people are learning about that if we don't learn, then we're going to feel silly, and then we get defensive because they know something we don't know. We're supposed to be the resident experts, right?
And I defer to Orenda all the time, and people are always like, hey, how can you tell people to use Orenda's app, take their academy, and use their material, their blogs, listen to their podcasts? Because I'm not in competition with anybody. I want people to get educated. I want them to be the best professional out there. There's no competition at this level. I'm just giving them resources to get educated. I'm on my homepage of my website. There's a link right there to Orenda, and I'm not competing with you, Harold, and you're not competing with me. We just want people to do the best they can to become the best pool professional so that this industry kind of goes to the next level. When you call an electrician, they're licensed. You never worry about, is this guy going to burn my house down? Because that industry has gotten to a point now where they're trusted. Now, plumbers are getting to that point now, too. When I call a plumber now, I don't worry about what happened 10, 15 years ago when I called the plumber, that they're going to sit there in the bathroom and not do anything and charge me $90 for something. That's not the industry anymore. They've moved beyond that. And so I think the pool industry needs to get to that level, too, where if someone calls a pool company, they're going to automatically have that built-in trust.
Well, and it's funny, several years ago, we were one of the first companies to get licensed in the state of Texas in repair, and that's interesting. You can build a pool without a license, go figure, but you can't fix a pool without a license. But I do think having a license and something to defend makes you behave better, potentially, and makes you more thoughtful about telling people to pound sand when you should take care of your problems, because there's recourse. I think that in the case of our industry, it's probably going to happen outside of my lifetime. But eventually, more and more every day, people are falling in. Now, it's not a panacea. Just because you're licensed doesn't mean you're everything. But it means that you went through some trouble to try to be credible. And there's recourse. Consumers feel vulnerable to the fact that in many instances, there's nothing you can do about their bad practice other than complain and go online or whatever. But you're feeling ripped off. So I would just say to all of you out there that I met a couple at the show in San Antonio. Two really smart people. They left their day jobs in finance and formed a pool company. They have 300 pools on service. They've got like 12 trucks out there, absolutely running their business extremely well, want the training. As soon as we talked about the training, they signed up for it and took it. And, all these people, these are our replacement players. Understand, folks, if you don't do it, the vacuum will be filled. If you don't go out and seek the aptitude to be the best, there'll be somebody that will. And the best customers expect that. The worst customers put up with your unwillingness to do that. So what else do you need to know? If you know less, most of the time, what does it cause people to do? Find the cheapest deal. Is the cheapest deal the best deal? In many cases, it can't even provide, we have a law from the 1800s. It's on our website at the Pool Surgeon that talks about this. If you Pay what you need to pay for what you intended for it to do in the first place. You don't have to keep replacing things. A good consumer wants a great experience with a thoughtful outcome, with a fair transaction. And if all those things happen and they do the things they describe, people go on for years. I'm in third generation relationships, grandchildren of customers we served when we started. So, it's a wonderful thing to have a referral and somebody that trusts you and a family that trusts you and a community that trusts you. And the whole referral system, the amount of money people spend getting new customers to run them through the ragged experience of not having a great outcome is silly. There's no better way to build a business than people that trust you, is the way you behave.
I was going to say the number one indicator that you're successful is if you get a pie chart and see where your customers come from. If 70% are coming from referrals, you know that you made it. You're at the point where your advertising budget doesn't need to exist because you're just getting all the referrals. So that's a key there. And let me just say this too, as far as the way you're running your business. If you have 3 generations of people using your service, you're doing something correct.
Well, I wish their kids thought like they did. I mean, I have some superstar celebrities in our community that their kids are almost impossible to serve. And if it weren't for their parents, I'd fire them. But so I hope the generations make the transition. Sometimes they do, sometimes they don't, in both directions. But yeah, it's a great indicator. The other thing that we find, for example, is how long do people stay on your site? How many of the people that you deal with are organic? So they had an experience, they came back. I mean, it's one thing to find somebody randomly because you don't know any better. It's another thing to continue to have repeat offenders. And a high percentage of our transactions online are organic, which means thanks for the memory, I'm coming back to you. So that's the affirmation of doing good job. Vetting what you say, not making stuff up because you've always done it that way. And these are all these cross all industries. It's not just the pool industry. It's anything. It's life. It's it's David, what I've said about you. You're a golden rule person. You have a certain expectation with people. You treat people with respect and kindness. You're a superstar. As a result, everybody wants to come on your podcast because you're a great guy and you're pretty humble and actually very funny, by the way, for the world. Privately, I don't think I've laughed any more than when I'm with this guy. He's pretty darn smart, even though he acts like he's Columbo when he's talking to people. He's a lot more brushed than he lets on. I guess that's why people trust you, Dave, because you put a lot of effort. There's nobody that deserves the first spot in that totality of the things you describe than you.
I appreciate that, Harold.
If it's your followers, if it's your podcast, you're a golden rule guy, and you help the willing and try to not think about the unwilling because it's frustrating when you're helping people. But I always appreciate the platform. I honor you for honoring Bob Lowry, who I knew for many years. Bob told me before he passed away I was responsible for more selling of his books, IPSA books, than anybody in the country because I bought them by the case because I thought they were great training. And some of our training, not all of it, because we don't always agree on everything, but by and large, I think he was one of the most thoughtful, intelligent people that really dissected complicated things and made them easier for me to understand, which is what we're trying to do at Orenda.
A nod to Bob Lowry. He definitely was the pillar of the industry in a lot of respects. And if you didn't agree with him 100%, no one's going to be able to agree with anyone 100%. Then if that's the case, you're doing something wrong if everyone likes you. But I think Bob Lowry wanted to contribute to the industry the way that we are, maybe from a different angle. And I definitely miss talking to him every month and the phone calls in between that he would call me. He would just call me out of the blue and anyone out of the blue, and he would talk to anybody. So just a nod to him that he really exemplified a helpful servant's heart.
Well, I didn't learn about him on a personal level and what a hero he was until much later in his life.
He didn't talk about himself. He didn't puff himself up. I mean, he could have just came in here and talked about how he was in the military, and I'm drawing a blank, but Green Beret, right?
I don't remember. I mean, the same thing was true with Greg Garrett. I didn't know those things about those people.
Yeah, because they never talked about themselves. That's real humility, not some kind of false humility. When you don't even know their background because they don't puff themselves up and say how great they are. But I wanted to end with this one here, and I'm going to ask I'm going to try to ask this question to all the guests. I'm going to start with you. You'll be the first one, and this is going to be like an ending podcast question. In your opinion, and you've been doing this a long time, if you were having a pool built, if you're having a pool built today, what would you have built? You know, salt, ozone. I'm just throwing those out there, but how would you build a pool if you had dirt in your backyard and you were going to break ground?
Well, I put some thought into it. I'd make sure that the people that were constructing my pool weren't using the template of engineering they had from the last 300 pools. I'd spend extra money on how my structure was built. I would want a wet gunite pool, which I don't think we push as much as an industry for strength. Almost entirely Dallas is dry, and I'm a fan of wet. I think it's stronger in general because of the fallibility of it. I would make sure I put enough steel in my pool. That's the kind of things I would pay attention to. I'd pay attention to people that were asking me questions or making statements about making sure that your experience was positive and that you had the quality that you were paying for. On the equipment side, a great pool sweep is a great substitute for a daily visit from a pool service person. I would automate my chemistry, which I think is way underdone in our industry residentially. I think it's one of the biggest mistakes they make is not automating chemistry. Having on-demand chlorination or on-demand adjustments in your water is an unforced error. I don't think the industry has done a good job of promoting it residentially like they should. I think that one of the problems with some of the solutions that are available on the pool equipment side are people's unwillingness to spend the right amount of money for the right outcome. Most of the ozone systems, and I'm a big fan of ozone, especially high-performing oxygen-fed ozone, but it's not cheap. Under $1,000, you could pretty well forget it. I think the oxygen concentrator alone was a couple of grand on my pool, and the microplasma ozone system I put on my pool is a remarkable ozone system that puts out 10 grams an hour, and my pool looks amazing, best water in the world. I'm going to look at putting a chlorine genie on my pool this year to see if I can regulate the chemistry and dial it in and put preventatives in the water that minimize the footprint of things I add to the pool. And nothing that I would do to my pool would be for the convenience of the operator. It would be to make sure my water was safe, to make sure my structure was safe, to make sure that all the codes were followed when my pool was built, and to have an incredibly positive attitude and feeling about something that you immerse your family in. And I think back to the things I've done at my age that are memories for me with my children, and one of them is in a pool. Used to be on a ski slope. That's changing with old knees, but having a place to develop family and friends, we are bringing people together. And I would lastly say to the operators of this industry, what you do is important. You can make water safe or not safe. You can make water more desirable, feel better, smell better, taste better. Spend some time understanding the things that you do for a living and not winging it. Then our industry will grow the right way. It's hard to say whether all the venture money finding our industry right now will end right. We'll see. If your sole purpose is money, I would say be careful. If your purpose is positive outcome and good experiences and a respect for the transaction of the consumer and the provider of service, I think everything's fine. But any one of those factors gets out of whack and it's a bad experience. You cut the steel because it saved you money and nobody knows any better when it's covered up. Wet costs more than dry gunite. Pebble is a way better surface for long-term experience, in my view, than other types of surfaces. And if those kinds of advices, and I give it all the time, I don't build pools, but I caution people about expectation and what they should do. And I've never had anybody come back and say that was a bad choice. I wait for wet gunite. Just because it's hard to find in Dallas, there's not very many people providing it. You're waiting already. Wait for the best. And don't be doing things for convenience and because that's what's available. If equipment's in shorter supply, then recognize the environment you're in and recognize that if you go outside those norms, you're going to probably either pay more or be disappointed. So I caution the consumers of this industry to stop expecting things that are unrealistic. If you want a beautiful ozone system, it's not going to cost $1,000. It's going to cost $8,000 or $9,000. If you want a cheap system and you want to control your chemistry, what I say to people about water chemistry monitoring, ORP systems, and automation, No one would bring their grandchildren to spend the night in their house and pull the battery out of their smoke detector. Why are we winging it with a pencil in our ear about how safe our water is and how balanced our pool is? Electronically, most of the controllers that run pools run LSI on their controller. What does that tell you? It tells you that there's things that should be looked after when you're not paying attention. You know, it's no different than driving a car today. It's remarkable the safety stuff that's in a car. I mean, I know I've avoided lane-to-lane collisions and obstruction that I didn't hit because of warnings in my system. And the same thing holds true for us. We should invest in safety equipment. We should invest in preventative solutions to people and be the best purveyor of information to our consumer so they trust us and they want to have a lifetime relationship with us.
Well said, Harold. I think you covered everything. And if someone's listening and they're going to have their pool built, play this 3-minute clip here, and you're going to get a lot of information. So being the first one to answer that question, I think you set the bar pretty high.
Well, thank you for that, Dave. And you bring up the bar in the way you expect. It's through language, it's through demeanor, it's through the respect of, you find the industry is sometimes critical of DIY. I think that, here's the last thing I would say. If you're providing service to your swimming pool and you think your competition is the do-it-yourself customer, you're wrong. Most people that have pool service have it because they don't want to do it, not because they can. So you converting a person that doesn't want your service into a person that's willing is a temporary condition. Let that person prosper and do things as they want to. And save yourself for the people that are willing. Provide your service to the people that appreciate the fact that you're doing something. And if they're constantly minimizing what you do, find another customer. What I do every day for a living, I think a lot about, and I think a lot of people do. And if you're going to minimize that experience because you think anyone can learn it, then let them. And don't spend a bunch of energy trying to change their mind. That's the wisdom of an old man. I only help the willing. I used to stand in the lobby of pool wholesalers and convert the unwilling, and it's a waste of time. When you're ready, and if you want to open your mind up and your heart up to change and to benefiting your customer, then I want to help you. And I'll spend endless amounts of patience and energy helping that person. But trying to convert people into something they're not, it's a waste of time.
Well said again, Harold. And I appreciate your time here and the wisdom that you're giving the industry.
Well, thanks for giving me a footprint. There's nobody getting out there and touching more people than you are, David. And you've earned it.
Thank you, Harold. And if you would like to learn more about the free training that Orenda offers or their app, you can go to my website, swimmingpoollearning.com. If you scroll down to the center of the website, you're going to see a little banner for the Orenda app. Also at the top, there's some scrolling banners. Just click on that, and it'll take you to their website. You can also just type in the search box, orendatech.com. That'll take you to their site also. And there's a lot of helpful videos, blogs, and of course, all their free education. You have the Orenda Academy, you have the Orenda Academy 4 Pillars, and you have the Orenda Academy Startup. And these are all free training courses offered on the Orenda site. And I highly recommend you take advantage of these free courses. And if you're looking for other podcasts that I recorded, you can also go to my website, again, swimmingpoollearning.com. On the banner, click on the podcast icon. That'll take you to a drop-down menu of other podcasts that I recorded. And if you are looking to enhance your business, definitely consider my coaching program. You can learn more on my website or poolguycoaching.com. Pool Service Pro. Open a Leslie's wholesale account today and receive wholesale pricing on products you use every day. Leslie's Pool Supply offers convenient locations that are open 7 days a week. Another great benefit of opening a Leslie's wholesale account is Leslie's referral program. Get referred to a customer looking for weekly pool service. Save time and money and grow your pool service route and become a Leslie's Pro.